We're part of the grand experiment today, so let me explain a little bit more about that. First of all, for those of you expecting to see Laura's report here today, apologies, cold away on emergency at the last minute. My name is Pat Thomas. Some of you may know me, some of you may not, but I am co-director and founder of Beyond GM and Bigger Conversation with Laura. And this is an initiative that we started several years ago in an attempt to broaden the discussion around GMOs in food and farming. And specifically, we wanted to ensure that citizen voices were heard and that other stakeholders, such as farmers and growers, but also academics, ethicists, social scientists, were given the opportunity to contribute to what is a really big and complex conversation. So in the process of doing this work, what's become clear is that genetic technologies are part of a much broader spectrum of technologies that food producers are being pushed to take up. And that push has come with an underpinning narrative that farming isn't efficient enough, it isn't green enough, it isn't producing enough to feed us all, and that we need all the tools in the toolbox. I've heard that phrase a lot, the tools in the toolbox. Even though not all tools are equal in value, impact, and even though the toolbox, which could be seen to represent the prevailing agricultural paradigm, may look very different in different contexts. We've also become aware that even if there's some reluctance around this narrative, around the tool in the toolbox narrative, that the agroecological community as a whole hasn't quite developed a compelling narrative to counter it. So that's really why we're here today. We're here talking about, in this session, which is part of a larger project try and identify the criteria for agroecologically appropriate technology, and I know that but I think it's fair to say that this project, which is being run as part of particularly Bigger Conversations, is starting with some assumptions. I suppose the biggest assumption is that farmers and growers are interested in this and they want to talk about it and they want to make a little bit more sense about it. But the other assumption is that technology is not value neutral. It's the product of human thinking, of ideology, and worldviews. In other words, the development and the deployment of technology comes with embedded when we adopt the technology. And some of those values may not always be compatible with what we are broadly terming agroecological systems. And that is because agroecological systems, for instance, organic and biodynamic, are already based on their own set of values, and technology choices within those systems, at least in an ideal world, would be based on those embedded values as well. And of course, this is not a perfect world, and practicality and speed will also come into play with technology choices, and this may have a greater or lesser influence depending on the technology. And we recognize that all farmers use technology. The technologies they use can span the spectrum from dog and stick to simple input to mega machines. But agroecological farmers are coming under increasing pressure to adopt a range of increasingly sophisticated technologies, which we are told are designed to improve efficiency and sustainability. So, for instance, last year, the UN Food and Agricultural Organization Sustainability Report 2022 went so far as to suggest that agroecological farming systems were a useful entry point through which the spread of technology and data capture and other types of very extreme high-tech approaches to farming can spread to the wider ecosystem. And it was really that conclusion that provoked us to start asking questions about
what agroecological appropriate technologies and how we make decisions. So not long after that, our colleagues at the Soil Association published their report on agroecotech. And whilst this is no doubt a useful report and it's sparked an important conversation around this issue, I think it's fair to say we were a little dismayed that the conclusions of the report did not specifically reflect organic values and how farmers make their choices in technology, but instead appeared to uphold the idea that technology is values neutral and technology is just a tool. So these were amongst the seeds that eventually became the project, which we have just begun. And they were helped along in our own day-to-day work by this very aggressive government narrative around the current genetic technology, which suggests that those who do not embrace this technology are simply anti. In fact, every conversation we have, ministers, MPs, and our colleagues in the biotechnology sector, we very often find ourselves handing over backwards because every conversation will go on technology costs, which means that we're always on the back. Instead of putting forward a positive agenda about what we do need, keeping the ego and reassuring others about what we want. So as part of this project, we will be convening over the next 18 months meetings with farmers and growers who farm under this broad agroecological umbrella. And to be fair, it's a pretty diverse group. You missed everything I said. Organic, permaculture, biodynamic, nature based our farmers from the alliance primary focus is 3,000. And the connected over there are very so what we're trying to do is get a sense of what everybody feels is appropriate technology for the way that they farm and how they go about making decisions around that. And what we're looking for, in addition to understanding these kind of decision pathways, is whether there are places where the diverse types of agroecological farmers and whether it's possible from that to co-create and to make a broad set of recommendations for agroecologically appropriate technology. Today's very full session, I thank you again everybody for coming, is really a taster for that. And because of time constraints, we are condensing the conversation considerably today and borrowing elements from World Cafe and I think maybe more appropriate speed dating. I mean, we're right up into tables, you should most people already, and facilitators will move from table to table with each discussion, but we're expecting a short snapshot discussion. And then once we kind of collected your thoughts on the input, we will come back into the bigger room and we'll have some bigger discussion. So, as far as ground concerns, phones are silent with the noise. Please try to think in terms of exploration and respectful listening. There are more rights and more answers, so nothing to shoot someone down because they have a certain. We put a big piece of paper on each table, the cookies and notes and pens, and we have more things. Amy, any this one to answer further questions or particular input. So take your paper. It's simple, it's experimental, it may work, it may not, let's see if we do it. But we are really genuinely interested in everybody's home on how they make decisions around technologies and whether those decisions have to change from so-called simple inputs to more complex ones. Amy, should we go to the next slide?
So we just wanted to get a sense of who's on group as you want. So online people, welcome. If you could write your answers in the chat. If you can hear me, maybe you can hear me better now. Sorry about that, online people. So if you could write your answers to this in the chat and Lizzie will feed back. But for the people in the room, if we can just have a... Okay, tech people.
So I don't think the room mic is working, so you're going to have to shout, I think, but the microphone that you're holding in your hand is helping for the it's helping for the online system. So
okay, great.
you're going to have to shout into both.
I'll shout, but maybe further away with the online people. Can you hear me okay at the back? Sorry if it's been too quiet so far. Okay, can I get a show of hands? Who in here is a grower? Maybe 60%, something like that. Great. Who works on a farm but is not a grower? A couple of you, great. Who's a student? A handful of people at the back, perfect. And who maybe works for another organisation adjacent to farming, a charity or a consultancy, and that's about a third of you or something. Great. And who hasn't been covered by any of the above? What do you do?
So I'm a manufacturer.
A manufacturer. Great. Nice to have you here. And what was the vibe from the online group? Is it a lot of growers or?
Nobody's put their hand up yet.
Okay, cool. Cool. Of the growers here, who of you has decision-making capacities on the farms? Who of you is responsible for what happens? Maybe 10 of you, 10, 15 of you? Cool, good to know. Okay, the next thing we wanted to do is just to get your brains starting to work a little bit, is understand what is agroecology. Agroecology, this broad umbrella term, not particularly well defined, means slightly different things to different people, but there have been attempts to define it. So we're going to have a little go at one now. Shout louder, okay. Oh yeah. So we'd just like to know, I'll just by hands up, what word or phrase comes to mind when you think about agroecology? Yeah.
Symbiosis.
Symbiosis, great.
Organic.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Organic.
Organic, yeah.
Systems.
Systems.
Holistic food system.
Holistic food system.
Justice.
Justice, good one, yeah.
Organic.
Organic, yeah. Ecology, yeah.
Nature.
Nature, yeah. So we've had, yeah.
Community dynamics.
Community dynamics, yeah.
Food.
Food, yeah, big one, yeah.
Sustainable.
Sustainable, yeah, great.
Nutrition.
Nutrition, yeah.
Organic.
Organic. Has everyone got the organic? Yes. Potential for greenwash, yeah, yeah. Realistic opportunity for greenwash, yeah. Yeah. Health. Yeah, did you have one? Yeah, so that's linking to indigenous or deep time ways of growing. Yeah, so we've had quite a range from environmental to organic to some of the more social community food aspect, justice aspects, as well as the food itself and the nutrition. So I think we've got quite a broad and holistic understanding in the room, which is great. Thank you, everybody. Did online have anything to add to that? Soil health. Oh yeah, big one. Yeah, great. Local, yeah, locals. Yeah, seems an important part of agroecology for a lot of people. Pest management, yeah, more like what you do on the farm itself in terms of agroecology rather than the system view. Yeah, cool. Okay, yes.
I just want to add, because fundamentally agroecology is about trying to create a system that's cycles in the way nature does. So it's like mimicking agriculture mimicking cycles of nature, like the way ecology works.
Yeah.
We need that fundamental understanding, don't we?
Yeah, so that was about yeah, understanding the whole system in which we
Trying to create agricultural systems that are produce us food, and not food, that understand how nature works.
Yeah. So that was all. Yeah, thank you for that. That was all about cycles and working within and mimicking cycles, and how important it is that our food is produced in a way that mimics those cycles, being an important part of agroecology too.
Things are more economically, you can make nature.
Yeah.
Not, I don't mean money, I mean.
So the efficiencies that we get from mimicking nature and mimicking the cycles of nature. So yeah, great. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that's the hard science, which obviously has come along a lot in recent years, especially with soil health and stuff, and how we weave that into some of the ways of thinking about systems and agroecology and things like that. So thank you, everyone. I think we've got a good understanding in the room of what agroecology is. So we're going to move on to the breakout groups now. So I'll hand back to Pat for that.
So this is the speed dating part. Each of our facilitators are going to start at a table with their big piece of paper. And they're going to ask, because we only have 7 minutes for each table at the moment, it's a one question snapshot of how you deal with specific types of inputs. And they will range from the relatively simple to the more complex. And what we're trying to get a sense of is how you make decisions around those things. Oh. So we have Tamara, we have Gareth, we have myself, and we have Amy. And we will move from table to table. You guys get to sit, the one goes to the many as we do the circle, okay? Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me fine.
Now I'm unmuted, hope you can hear me fine. The question we are looking at first is, what are the ethical perspectives and values that inform your choices of technology when you're thinking about buying seeds? So maybe the best thing to do is to type responses in the chat. I'll put the question in.
We're on the home stretch and we're going to start in sort of ascending order from seeds through to inputs, through to robotics, through to GM. So Amy, you are first up.
So seeds. So we wanted to understand the ethical considerations and values behind the seed choices you make on your farms or hypothetical farms. The things that came up were quite similar from table to table in terms of the values.
Sorry.
So we had organic, biodynamic, non-GM, provenance, short supply chains, open pollinated, quite a lot of discussions about whether people preferred open pollinated or F1s in terms of the practical considerations, and diversity. A lot of the tables, particularly the ones dominated by commercial growers, talked about the practical considerations being almost a hindrance to them being able to follow their values when it comes to their seed choices. So availability, quality, cost, yield, reliability, all of those things that you need to make a farm actually work. We talked about, quite a few of the tables talked about the ethics of their seed choices versus the ethics of other considerations and the values and other considerations on running their farm, like paying their growers well, and how the interplay between those things. We talked about seed saving and why more growers don't, why more commercial growers don't save seed, and maybe the systems that need to be in place to allow more to do it, or allow at least more within a local area to be able to do it. We talked about diversity and the importance of having, particularly with climate change becoming more important, how important it is to have local diversity to allow people in very different parts of the UK with very different, increasingly different climatic conditions to have locally adapted seeds that work for them. One of the tables mentioned the intersection between robotics and AI, which relies on uniformity. So if you're having a robot to pick your things, they need to all be ready at the same time. Whereas some of the other tables were saying that open pollinated seeds give them more variety or more difference in when things are ready. So helps with succession. So that doesn't really work so well with robotics and AI. So interesting to look at the values between all the different things you've been talking about today. Thank you. So next is Tamara and external inputs. I'll give you this.
Hello, everyone. So the question we discussed was about external system inputs, like, and there was a long list of different inputs ranging from compost, fertility, seeds, energy, to as far as knowledge, information, of course, labor, machinery, all those things that we need or don't need to source to make our system or farm run. So again, the discussions were similar, but also very different and interesting at every table. And I hope everybody had a good time and felt stimulated by it. I've tried to group a bit the ideas given, and of course the pivotal consideration that people seem to be giving to when deciding on sourcing an input of one nature or another is the environmental impact of that specific input, whether it's on the farm or on the wider environment and on the planet. So stemming from that is the consideration about the circularity of the input, and how repairable it is, or how renewable it is, or how long it will take for an input to biodegrade, to be reused if that's the case. So obviously it's very closely linked to the environmental impact. Another group of considerations very frequent and broadly given to the social impact of acquiring or sourcing an input or another, whether we talk about the labor or the volunteers use the community input. How is the community impacted by our decisions as farmers and what we choose to source? So that is a very important ethical consideration. And no less important is the origin, the locality, the distance that an input has traveled to the farm. How was it made? Where was it made? And how much the neighborhood benefited from selling that input to the system. So to me, these are the four broad and general groups of ethical considerations that the audience seems to be giving to in their decision-making process. But there were, of course, other very interesting things put on the sheet that will need obviously expanding and looking into, like legal duties, robotics, gratitude, the financial considerations. Will the output justify the input? Will the price, is the price fair to the decision maker? So these are also very important considerations, and ethical as well. So you're very welcome to come and have another look at the sheet, and I wish you all the luck and big success with working something out of this. I just made this up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I came around and talked to you about robotics. Basically, I got kind of, from the practical point of view, I didn't get a feeling that it was, in a sense, unethical. I mean, I think people are interested. I think it's, in a sense, a continuation of what we already do anyway. We all use machinery in one form or another on the whole. And it's really about, you know, what is the problem you're trying to solve? You know, what is the context of that? How much control do you have over it? So from that point of view, I didn't get a big pushback, feeling of pushback against robotics. On the other side, I felt where the real resistance was how it interacts with the natural systems, the ecosystem, if you like, the ecology, and the people, and what effect that has on the people in the system. So are we in, you know, is this just another way that we're losing contact with agriculture and how we practice it, basically? And are we just, you know, putting yet another step remove between us and the way we produce our food, in a sense? So, I mean, the social elements, to me, I think, you know, where agroecology will have to think, you know, the movement as a whole will have to think about is the place of robotics and how that affects, if you like, the community around agroecology and the social aspects of it. So those, I think, will come to the fore, basically, because obviously, you know, I look around the room, people with different farming systems with very different objectives, and where robotics is going to fit into that will vary enormously, basically. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, basically.
Thank you.
Well,
so bringing up the rear with genetic modification, I suppose the first thing to say was that it was really clear, because we don't grow GM crops in this country, that that was more of a theoretical discussion, and that people were initially engaging with it from what they'd heard or from the values that are embedded in, for instance, if you're organic or you are biodynamic. There was a very strong pushback from those individuals against GM because GM, as we understand it, is really the opposite of the values that are embedded in those sorts of things. I think in talking about GM, we did sort of present you with a bit of a head scratcher, really. But the thing is, whether you know a lot about it or you only know a little bit about it, the same decision-making processes apply, whether you're looking at seed or inputs or robotics. You start with what kind of farmer or grower you want to be and what values you bring into that, and what you can live with. Can you live with yourself in the end and the decisions that you make? There were certainly some themes that came up again and again. Corporate control was one, and where farmers and growers find themselves within that web. The theme of precaution came up a lot, and I think that is in some ways a reflection of the things that we don't know yet. There's a lot of uncertainty around GM, which makes it very difficult to make decisions around it. And there was a desire to know more about GM as it exists now, and the continuum that we see stretching into the future of gene editing and other applications of genetic engineering in food and farming, and where those are leading. There was a real desire to try and cut through what was seen as hype and get to the facts so that you could make a decision about it. And I think that
that's something certainly we've witnessed in other fora as well. But my notes here, excuse me. I think trying to find a way to put it. I think there was a difficult Rubicon for some of the tables, not all of them, to cross. And that was the notion that what if there is a genetically engineered crop that does good? And how will we decide about that? And I'm not sure we really reached any conclusions about that, but it was interesting to hear. And a couple of the people who brought it up suggested, you know, I never thought I would say this, but maybe some good could come of it at some point. And that suggests an openness and that really connects back to the need to sort the fact from the hype. And so for my takeaway from this is that it's very difficult at this moment in time to make values-based judgments around GM unless you are already embedded in, say, organic or biodynamic perspectives, and permaculture as well, you know, where there are some prescribed rules that tell you what you can and cannot grow. But there are also a lot of people who want to know more and learn more before they make those values judgments. So I think we're kind of at the edge of something with GM. And lagging behind a lot of the other inputs and technologies that we use on farms here. But it was I found it a really interesting discussion that looked at impact and stewardship and precaution and all these things that you would start asking questions about of a new technology that you're not familiar with. So it was really interesting to hear all your feedback and really the feedback from all the tables as well. I hope you found it stimulating and interesting. And I think what we'd like to do is just to spend the last few minutes here wrapping up. If anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to make, then now's the time to sort of bring it into the group. Yeah, but we started at 10:20. We want our 90 minutes. We demand our 90 minutes. So very quickly.
We will have to finish now because
okay.
Yeah, we're going to have to have a coffee and then come back.
Yeah. All right.
To start it so.
If you can see online,
okay, well.
No, is that the population or the real population?
It is